How's it going this week, everybody? This week I'm going to be having Yuliya on. She had a very close encounter with an extraterrestrial type being. Very interesting story, and I'm glad she came on to share it. I'm sure you guys will definitely enjoy this one. Also, just a quick shout out to all the members that have been signing up for the membership. I do appreciate it. If you guys are interested in the membership, you can head over to challengetheunknown.com and get early access to new content. Thanks for listening.
It was 2019, early morning. Well, not too early. It's about 9 a.m. or something like that. Nice and bright outside. My windows are open. The blinds are open, so the sun is shining through. There's nothing mystical or suspicious happening. It's a pretty quiet day. And I have a big project coming up since I'm an artist, and I have an art project coming up. And I'm very excited to go work on it. So I wanted to prepare my house for the project. So I wake up and get out of bed and start cleaning around. I'm not tired. I'm not hungry or anything in particular. I'm just, kind of going through the motions of getting things ready. And then when I was picking something off the floor, I kind of felt a presence of some sort in my house. So I turned around and there was nobody really on that side. So then I turned back and tried to pick something up. And then I saw about 3 foot beings just sitting there. Well, not sitting, I was standing. But I was in a state of shock. So I was kind of surprised by it. But I wasn't necessarily scared because it didn't look frightening necessarily, just kind of, oh, hello, what are you doing here? And I was alone at the house, so there was nobody there except for me. And I was a little bit surprised of like, what is that thing? And it looked kind of had the skin leathery. The skin looked kind of leathery and palish gray, but not really closer to lilac color. Since I'm an artist, I very pick up on that sort of thing. Like a slight hint of purplish in it, and didn't really have any pores or anything that looks skin-like, but it was a mimic of skin. And the eyes and the facial features look exactly human, like 1-to-1, like that is definitely looks like a human feature. Except there were further apart, and nothing how you see people would usually describe or draw, say, otherworldly beings with giant, huge eyes that stretch all over the face. Nothing like that. It wasn't that exaggerated. It looked pretty much what one would think our human evolution would look like, say, a few centuries forward, if we so survive. And then the eyes, they looked human, except for a few things. They were further apart, they were slightly larger, and the irises were black, but you could still see all the striations inside of them. And the whites of the eyes were slightly dark as well. They were dark also. Everything was dark about the features. And one thing that really stuck out were the pupils, because they were matte black, and there was no reflection in them at all. Like nothing. No light was reflecting from them. And everything else seemed normal compared to the pupils. And the being communicated by what I believe is telepathy, but the voice that it used was my own, except it had no intonation whatsoever. It had no characteristics. It had no fluctuations of any sort. So it was really difficult to distinguish what the message actually was, because the sentence made sense, but the meaning behind it was completely lost, as if a computer program was generating that mixture of words. Which was
how far away were you from this entity during this experience?
Oh, very close, extremely close. I was less than a foot away. My face was like basically like face to face with it, except it couldn't necessarily touch me, but it could communicate with me. And it gets weirder when we go forward with it, because how I ended up getting out of it was also rather strange.
So this thing was within a foot of you, 3 feet tall, standing in the middle of the room.
It wasn't in the middle of the room. It was right by the door to my room. So it wasn't like in the middle of the room.
And how long did you look at this thing? How long did this experience last?
It didn't last super long. I would have to say maybe some in minutes. Like it wasn't like hours. It wasn't seconds, but it was definitely within minutes.
Okay, so you are in your house doing normal everyday things, and then you experience a presence, as you describe it. You turn around, there's nothing there, and then you turn back around, and there's this entity in the room, and it's 3 feet tall, humanoid, somewhat consistent with classic extraterrestrial descriptions, and
but not really, like close, but
not.
It wasn't like the features weren't like how you see those like pictures of giant oval shaped heads and giant oval shaped eyes, and they're pitch black. Not quite like that, but in a sense similar.
Okay. No, okay, so that makes sense. And then, do you say anything to this entity, or do you just look at it?
Oh, I didn't have to talk. Well, first of all, I was kind of not scared to talk, but it was as if I wasn't given permission to talk. So the being had full advantage kind of over me, and it felt a little bit more powerful than an average human. It felt like way more powerful, except for one little thing. It had no sense or ideas of what emotions are.
Okay, interesting. So what happens next? You have this experience. This thing is talking to you with your own voice through your mind, but it's like a computer.
But it doesn't say like too much. It just said one sentence.
What did it say?
Well, before it said the sentence, it showed me something. So inside my mind, it kind of entered my mind. It's going to sound really weird, but it like kind of entered my mind, I think. And it showed me the nothingness. So it showed me the true existence of nothing. So it wasn't dark, it wasn't light, but it was like both at the same time. It's really hard to describe, but it showed me a place that had no space, no mass, like no mathematical equation could kind of describe it in sense. So definitely no time for sure. It was kind of just this nothing.
So it showed you, quote unquote, nothing, which is, I understand that from a existence perspective. It showed you what nothing looks like, what true nothingness looks like. Okay. And then what happens?
And then it said to me in a very, not even monotone, because monotone is still a tone. It had no tone. It was mimicking my own kind of vocal cords, but it said, one day I will take everything away from you. And that was it.
Repeat that for me one more time.
One day I will take everything away from you. but it had no intonation at all. So I don't know if it's a warning, if it's just like, hey, friendly reminder, or a threat. Like, it didn't have any sort of indication of what it meant.
Right, because so this thing is basically in your own voice just piecing words together with no emotion or indication of intent behind it.
Yeah, there's no sense behind it.
So you didn't know if that was a malicious statement or some kind of other statement.
Yeah, exactly. Or just like a just statement is an effect.
Interesting. That's a very interesting encounter. I've heard a lot of descriptions of extraterrestrials and these types of beings on my show over the years, but this is the first one that's been described in that much detail because you were so close to it. I interviewed a woman a long time ago who, when she was real little, had a memory of seeing some tall version of these things, and she said it was about 6 feet tall, and I showed her the Yundula, I think that's how you pronounce it, Yundula alien photograph, which is this area in Bulgaria where there's like this supposed alien photograph, and it's unexplained. It might be hoaxed, it might not be, but when I showed her the photograph of it, she, immediately was like, wow, that's what I saw. So, people are seeing something. I don't know what these things are. What do you think these things are? Do you think they're men from space? Do you think they're some kind of interdimensional thing? Where do you think they come from?
It didn't end there. It kept going. So there's more to it. So maybe if I tell you the other part of it, then you can piece it together.
Okay. So what happens next?
So after I looked into it and it showed me the abyss and it told me the phrase, I started to feel as if it was kind of taking over me, and I was trying to almost just feast on some sort of defeat that I was feeling towards that being, because it definitely was some sort of a human response to it. And then I kind of remembered, like, hey, wait a second, clearly this thing cannot feel human emotion, so it cannot feel fear or sadness or defeat or happiness or love or anything that mumbo jumbo that we as humans can experience. And I feel like that's frustrating, but not in the same sense that it's frustrating to us, to the being. So it wants to take it over as a source of power, perhaps. So when I started thinking that way, it somehow spit me back out. And by spitting me back out, I mean I was no longer in the abyss of state, and the being kind of disappeared, but I was still in the same position as I was when I was bending over to grab something from the floor. And I looked over at my hands, and my all over my skin there was some weird residue, but it wasn't like mucusy or anything. It was literally light moving all over just my skin, not my clothes at all, just all over my skin. And if I lift up my shirt just a little bit, I could see this residue was all over my skin, and it was kind of like a field of sorts. It was I could see all the colors of the rainbow on it, and it moved like waves, but I didn't feel it. But it was very, very close to my skin. It almost felt like second skin. So
interesting. Very interesting.
And then it disappeared. And then I was like, whoa, what was that? And I kind of like went back and tracked back. I'm like, I'm not stressed. I have nothing to worry about. I don't see why this would happen. Did I hallucinate? And what was that all about? And I kind of ruled it all out, but I still kind of, because I'm a superstitious person, but I'm still a skeptic when it comes to anything like that. And my first response was like, oh my God, was that a demon? Because I'm like thinking back to all my kind of, superstitious habits and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I got to get out of here. This is like not a good place to be. But I didn't felt scared. I'm more felt kind of like, yeah, one day this being probably will take everything away from me because it was really powerful. And I don't know what that was all about, but I needed to get out. So that night I did not sleep at home. I went over to my friend's house and just stayed over there. But this idea of, hey, how about the fact that we're not alone in the universe and aliens came up when I actually told my mom this year of what happened last year. So, yeah, I'm still in the same place, and nothing like that has happened, except the thing that came to me was 2019, and then 2020 happened, and I was like, oh, that's weird. Yeah.
Interesting. So have you seen this thing again, or is that the only time you've ever seen it?
No, that was the only time.
Interesting. That's an interesting encounter,
But it was very close. Yeah, it was very, very close.
That's the closest encounter I've heard of at this point. That for anybody that I've interviewed, that is, you're the first person to have been that close to an entity, whatever it is. So that's interesting. So, like, I guess to recap, you went to pick up this item, and then all of a sudden this whole experience happened, and then it like put you back into the very moment that you last were.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. As if like it was like a time loop of some sort.
Right. So how long did that was there a loss of time, or was it like the exact same moment that you left? Or was there...
It felt like there was time passed, but I don't know exactly how much time has passed. I just know I don't think it was a lot of time, but yeah.
Interesting. That's a wild experience. What do you think these things are? You think they're interdimensional then? Is that the...
I think it's a possibility. I just don't see why would they decide to encounter at that point. I thought that was a little bit odd, and why would they want to encounter like that place out of all places specifically? Like, did they fudge up the coordinates or what, message did not deliver, or kind of,
So you've never seen like lights in the sky or anything prior to this? Nothing like that?
When I was little, yeah, but I never really it almost felt natural. It never felt like otherworldly thing. It was like, oh, there's lights in the sky. But I was so little, I was like, oh, the world is like, I don't know what's happening in the world. To me, it was like normal, kind of a part of the world.
Right, you didn't understand it at the time. You didn't suspect that would be anything out of the ordinary. No, I understand that. That's interesting. I actually talked to a guy yesterday that saw some lights in the sky when he was about 6, and he just kind of watched it because when he was 6, he didn't think that was, some crazy earth-shattering thing to see. So no, I understand that.
Because you're new and you're just like, oh, I don't know what's going on here.
So, no, I think that was I'm glad you came on to share that story. That's a really interesting account, and I hope that thing doesn't come back for you, whatever it is, and whatever it's gonna take from you. I don't know if that was some like metaphoric, poetic shit, or if
everything.
It was, I don't know if it was supposed to be some poetic, deeper meaning stuff, or if it's gonna come and abduct you. I sure hope not. But regardless, it's an interesting encounter, and hopefully we get some answers one day as to what these things are.
Yeah, I wonder if anybody else has experienced anything similar. That would be really cool to know.
That would be cool to know.
Especially with the eyes. The eyes were something else.
Yeah, that's something you really focused on, was the eyes. The details weren't your classic description. That's very interesting. So maybe someone will come forward and send me an email and say that they've seen that too. So we'll see what happens.